So my first interactions with Portos was pretty special. He was very different to Kelly's horses, so I very much straight away noticed he had a strong freeze response. So he appeared really quiet, and to be fair, he is one of the more habituated stallions that came in because he lived close to the army barracks, so was very used to soldiers going back and forth and photographers. So compared to the horses that came out of Zone 20 where they don't have many people because there's live ammunition and very much a no-go zone, was pretty relaxed. But I could still see that he was a little bit inward and not so much a fleer or a fighter compared to Kelly's too. So Conquistador was very confrontational and up in Kelly's face and threatening her because when he felt overwhelmed, whereas Windrift wanted to leave. And so working with Portos was hard in the sense I had to be very, very patient. Sometimes I missed cues and I'm like, oh yeah, he looks relaxed, step forward, and then his body language, I'd missed a subtle change in his body language and suddenly I get a big change where he feels like he needs to leave or something. And so yeah, you have to be reading their body language at all times, and sometimes you do make mistakes, but then being quick to be like, oh, my bad, sorry, and step out. And our ultimate goal is we want to ask for permission before we do something with a horse rather than for forgiveness. And so the whole time we're very like doing a bit of a dance, saying, can I push? No. Do I need to wait? Do I need a bigger release? We wait till they switch into a really relaxed frame of mind, then we retreat to reward. And with Portos, one of the things I taught him quickly was a safety stop. So if he started to flick an ear on me in the beginning or roll an eye towards me, I'd retreat. As I started to do a bit more, I started to get him to put two eyes on me, I would retreat. And then after a while, when he put two eyes and moved his body towards me, I'd retreat. And so he got the sense that if he felt overwhelmed, he just had to walk towards me. And that was cool in the sense that I got what I wanted and he got what he wanted. I want him to be able to draw in and begin to start to interact and communicate, and to do that he needs to be looking at me and taking me in rather than putting his head to the side and ignoring me. And he gets what he wants because he can push me around the yard in a really lovely way where he can just be like, she's getting a bit close, I'm going to step towards her. And in the end, he just follows me around now with the most beautiful, gorgeous little expression on his face. And the first week or two has just been about getting him confident and relaxed, and I just do a few things like teaching him to yield his hindquarters and give him a bit of body control so that he's got tools to keep himself safe, and very much respecting his space and how he feels, and if he's got something going on where his attention's elsewhere, that's a time where I let him look and I let him investigate, because he has every right to take it all in, and I want to have a relationship with him where it's equal sides. I don't want to go in and control everything he does and he just has to learn to, do whatever I say. I want to communicate to him, he can communicate to me, and have a really special bond. So he's been super fun to work with, and I'm excited to see how he progresses. So now I'm at a stage where I'm in a massive big paddock, and I'm just trying to work on first touches, and I'm doing the same approach and retreat method as I did to get him to turn in. So basically every time he turns his body language away from me, I'm going to come in. And the moment his body language starts to come back towards me, I'll withdraw. So there he just flicked an eye on me and an ear. He's doing it again now, but I just want a little bit more. Good boy. Good boy. And you can see he's just tilting his head away and avoiding a little bit, which is fine. Good boy. And there's just building up the courage to start to look at me. Good boy. Well done. And the goal would be that he sniffs my hand or acknowledges me a little more. So there I'm going to wait because he's ignoring me. I'm not going to go in any further, I'm just going to wait. So there I could mistake that he's quiet enough for me to go in, but he's very much, his body language is leaning away from me. Good boy. I'll just give him a little bit of space there because he's got a fright from behind him. So although he looks quiet, he's actually just starting to switch off a little bit. So I have to wait till he looks at me, turns his brain back on a little bit. Good boy. Good boy. Good boy. It's very natural for a wild animal to have feelings of anger or resentment or those sort of emotions, considering what they've been through. They've been taken from their homes, they've been split up from their families, they've been put into yards, and like these guys are out in paddocks, but nothing compared to the size of the ranges. They've expected to suddenly learn this new language and get used to this new way of life, and it's very emotionally taxing for them. So I don't want to punish him for showing that response, but I want to instead teach him that, give him tools on how to communicate with me, how he's feeling in a nicer way rather than trying to intimidate me through force. So when he puts the ears back and gets grumpy, I'm going to wait, keep a bit of pressure on him and wait until he puts his ears forward and shows me a nice demeanour. Because at the end of the day, even though he is sometimes getting grumpy with me, how he's telling me is actually quite polite. So there, I've got him a little bit tense. I'm just going to wait. Good. And every time he starts to bring his nose towards me, good, or his eye, I'm just going to rock back. With the goal that he can acknowledge me, because he really struggles with this. Yeah, there we go. Good. Good. I'm going to give him a little break there because he did a really nice job. And his refractory period is quite short. He feels like he can lick his lips and yawn and do a bit of a catharsis with me quite close to him, and quite quickly after the session. So some horses need a lot more space and a lot more time to be able to do that, so that's really cool. So it means his recovery process is quite quick. So he is warning me with a little bit of a surly expression, but at the same time I'm going to just keep asking him because, good boy, if he's really worried about me, he'll do the safety stop, which is where he just brings his nose towards me, and I've shown that every time he does that I'll always hop back. So he doesn't actually, that's his tool. He's got control over me if he looks at me. What he tends to do is use anger to control me, and that in human form is emotional manipulation, where they use emotions to control. I want communication. I want him to say, hey, I'm not feeling good about this, can you please give me some more space? And I'll say, of course, I'll hop back. But if he uses anger, he's using his emotions to control me, and then we don't really have a true relationship. Nice space. Good job. So there he came round, took me in with his nostrils. So so I'll give him a little break. And same if I was training him in that way where I was saying, do this or else, you know, this is the consequence, etc. That's again emotional manipulation. I'm making him do it because I'm controlling him through my emotions. I want to not control him, but I want to have the ability to communicate with him through a relationship between him talking to me and me talking back to him. So there he's got grumpy. I'm going to keep here. I'm going to keep the pressure. I'm going to buffer until... Thank you. A nice expression. Good boy. And he came back. Okay, I'm going to come back in. He's evading. I'm going to stay here until he gets both eyes on me. And I'm just going to follow him until he can just quietly stand and relax with both eyes on me. Going to wait till he relaxes. Good job. So he just dropped his head slightly. So there I've just got to wait because he needs time to process that. So I'm choosing to do the majority of my work at Liberty because for me, in the past, I've had big holes in my training, and so this is a really cool opportunity for me to work with a clean slate and learn the very nuances of how I want to train. And I feel like if I just put him through a crush, which actually can be quite a positive experience if it's done well, I felt like I was just going to skip and take a shortcut that I actually need to learn. So I know I could have run him through the crush within the first week because he was pretty quiet, and had him really happily leading and used to humans a lot more by now. But for the sake of my training, I think it's something I really need to learn is how to do all the tiny little steps so that we have a more positive finish. So in the future, my training method will be very different because I'm very much experimenting. But for now, I just want to see what works and what doesn't. And sometimes I'll do something and I'll say, no, that does not work. And then I'll quietly readjust it and try something else. So with him, good job. He came round and gave me both eyes. So to finish the session, I'm going to just see if I can have him do the same thing again. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to set up both hands. I'm going to give him a little break there. I actually scared him, so that time I came in too quick. So you can see his whole body was starting to panic. And this is the side he's not so good at, so I'm just going to set myself up. Good, as his hands, good job. I'm going to wait there because his face is grumpy. That was so good. Well done. So I'm a very firm believer in having a slow start. You often end up finishing quite quick. And this video was taken just a day later from my previous session in the round yard with Portos, and I was able to go straight in and touch him for the very first time on his mane and on his neck. Now this was a pretty big deal obviously because the day before he was really uncomfortable with me in his space and he was showing me quite a strong freeze response and at times a bit of a fight response. And when I'm working with these horses, I work with the wild horses differently than I would work with a domesticated horse, but I have to be very respectful of the fact that Portos has a lot of fear in him, and I don't want to put him in a situation where he learns to tolerate me and he does what I ask him to do because he's scared of the consequence. I want him to do what I ask him to do because he understands, he has respect for me, and we have a relationship where communication is a key element. And so for me to be able to rub my hands all over his neck and under his mane with him in a very relaxed manner, especially considering how he's been leading up to the stage, is a massive deal. And he obviously still has his ear on me and he's still watching and you know, keeping an eye on me, but for the most part he's just very happy and relaxed, and he was so good to touch. And
this is such a big deal too, because it's taken me 5 weeks to get to this stage. I've chosen to do this at Liberty because I want to be able to have this result where I'm not having to put a rope on him and force my hand on him, but get him to a stage where he's genuinely comfortable with me being there.
Good boy, and I really like how he's just softening into it. Good boy. He's got the naughtiest kind of face. This is a really big moment right here. He doesn't normally look at me, so I'm going to give him a big reward for that. So normally he can hold my gaze, but not to the point where he pushes up into me. Oi, don't do that. Portos. Good. So for whatever reason, possibly that I just went a bit lower than he was happy with. He's just warning me, but that's okay. But just because he's coming around a little bit fast towards me, I'm just going to have this hand up to block just in case he does anything further. Just going to wait till he softens there. Good boy. That was really cool. So I'm just starting to run my fingers off the end of his nose. Good man. I'll give him a little moment. He's at a stage where he's not super comfortable with it yet, but I'll do that a couple more times. So he's about to roll, he's done this a couple of times. It's quite interesting. I'll do a session and then he just randomly drops. And that's quite a vulnerable position to be in because he's got his back to me. So I'll just hop away from him. You done? Good boy. So I'll just do it a couple more times till he's good. That was nice. And he's actually touching my hand. He's pushed his head into my hand. That's his first time he's ever initiated the touch. Good boy. Well done. And because he's the sort of horse I was trying to touch his head, but he didn't want to be touched. That's why I went to his neck first, which he was much happier with. Good boy. And I'm able to come straight in at his cheekbone, which is so awesome. So even though he's leaning away from me, his expression is really soft, so let's stay with it. What are you doing?